once more, just sticking to the method I had used before on her breasts, and lightly eased my hand into her center, holding it there, just fucking barely touching her. No cookie again. I could feel the heat just fucking radiating. It made my dick twitch. I'm pretty sure she felt it. I held my hand still on her, not knowing how much to push her with this one thing. I didn't want to see the frustration when another cookie came. She never gave me the chance to decide. She shifted her hips against it. And me. Our breath hitched at the same time. And I gave her another disapproving look that clearly said, process. Her impatience was clear in her eyes, but she remained compliant nonetheless. It had to have been 3 hours since we had first arrived, fucking battling to keep my girl relaxed so that I could grope her fully. And now more. I was telling her with my eyes to be fucking thankful we could even get this far as I gently applied pressure with my palm. She twitched slightly again. But it was really fucking unfortunate that I couldn't decipher her reaction as a positive or negative one. When she didn't say cookie, I was fucking praying she was being honest and not just soldiering on. Though her lust-hooded eyes certainly backed her up. I was still gently caressing her hand on the ground with mine as I moved my other palm against the fabric of her jeans. Her eyes fluttered closed once again as her breathing grew deeper. I decided to work with smaller areas as I lifted my palm off of her and used my middle finger to slowly slide up the seam with a gentle pressure. I watched as her eyebrows just barely knit together at the feel of it. I avoided the most sensitive area once again and added another finger on my trail back down. She grew impossibly more limp on top of me as I made my pass. I repeated it a few more times, resolved to take it slowly despite her impatience. I added another finger on my fourth pass, applying even more pressure as I rubbed outside of her jeans, always avoiding the spot I estimated her clit to be. Because I honestly had no fucking clue what her reaction would be if I touched it. Her breathing became heavier as I added my pinky, finally using all 4 fingers to stroke my way up and down, always keeping my middle finger on the seam of her jeans. When I added the pinky, she spread her legs further for me, dropping her feet to either side of my calves. I made more passes with my fingers, a little fucking nervous about the next step as I made her more relaxed by caressing her hand with my thumb. I could feel every heavy breath she took while she sat on top of me, and my erection was being smashed in between us in a way that was far more fucking pleasant than it should have been. I darted my eyes to her throat, where I could actually see her pulse as the pale skin on it rose and fell with each beat of her heart. I was paying it close attention as I lowered my thumb to her jeans and lightly dragged it over her clit. She gasped and fucking bucked her hips up into my palm, doing a little ride to find the friction of my thumb while simultaneously stirring my heart on underneath her. I darted my eyes back to hers where she was looking at me and gave her another disapproving look. Not fucking cool. She huffed and began looking frustrated again, which I didn't fucking like.
Reflex reaction, Edward.
She whispered, closing her eyes again. Well fucking DUH. I pressed on, deciding that she was right. Shit like that was probably going to happen, and it was probably best to let her initiate it anyways. So when I dragged my thumb against it once again, and she lifted her hips to meet it, I kept my disapproving fucking looks to myself. I began adding that to the circuit my fingers were making, sliding all the way up to brush against it, where her breath would hitch, and she would push forward for more friction, then sliding there back down, and clenching my teeth against what her writhing was doing to me. I added more pressure on my second pass, almost applying the entire palm as I slid it up. When it touched that sensitive spot once again, she fucking moaned deeply, shifting against it. I expelled a pretty fucking large gust of air and leaned my head back completely against the trunk of the tree, battling with my own reflex reaction to push back into her as I applied my entire palm and began rubbing her completely. And I didn't even fucking need to push back into her, because once I began rubbing her fully, she began the writhing shit again. I could feel her hand on the ground fist into the long blades of grass as she breathed deeply on top of me, trying to make more friction for herself. I closed my eyes and just kept fucking rubbing with my palm, up and down, feeling every curve of her folds over the thin blue jeans. and she writhed more with every pass, moving up against me and making me fucking insane as my own breathing sped up against my will. I sped my movements up, going faster to accommodate whatever the fuck it was she wanted. I didn't know at that exact moment, and as her movements became a fairly obvious constant right on top of me, making me stifle groan after groan, I was wondering if it was possible to even make a girl climax through jeans. And as she began the soft moaning once again from where her head was lowered back on my shoulder, I was wondering if my girl had even ever had an orgasm before. Then my traitor teenage hormonal motherfucker mind began drifting to scenarios on how she would make herself do it. Against my will and better judgment, I raised my hips, shoving my erection into her as I pushed against her center, and groaned fucking loudly. I froze and clenched my eyes closed further, fisting my hand over hers in the grass, and fucking praying for self-control as she began panting on top of me. I pushed my palm back into her and started again. And she was fucking moaning as soon as I resumed my ministrations, still fucking writhing against me as I rubbed her faster and harder. And I was fucking cursing myself for bringing this goddamn jacket, because I was hot as hell and the soft breeze blowing wasn't nearly enough. I opened my eyes as I was rubbing. And I don't fucking know why I would, because it was harder to concentrate when I did, but I did it any fucking ways. I wanted to see her face. I had seen my girl so fucking depressed and defeated all week, I just had to see her expression. I tilted my head down just enough to gaze sideways at her. Her lips were still parted as she breathed heavily, writing with every pass of my palm, eyebrows lightly knitted together with her eyes closed. A soft moan escaped her lips as I stared at her, making me twitch beneath her as I tightened my fist around hers in the grass, never ceasing the rubbing. Her eyes opened then, heavy and hooded, as she darted them to mine. And the desperation and the frustration were there again, as she pushed herself against my palm. But this was different. This was the good kind. She looked at me pleadingly, though I didn't know what she wanted. I took a guess and added more pressure to my palm. She gasped, and writhed harder against it, but she was still pleading for something with her eyes, as she gazed at me, panting, and fisting harder into the grass. I furrowed my brows at her, kind of fucking panting myself with every writhe against my dick. She closed her eyes with a whimper. And instead of answering my question, she brought her free hand up behind her head, and to my neck. I was a little fucking confused, and wishing she wouldn't move so much, before she slid it up into my hair. And she wrapped all her fingers around my messy locks, pulling them into her hand, and balling it into a tight, painful fist. It took my last fucking shred of control, and she knew it would. My girl knew just how to drive me fucking insane. I groaned, and moved my face into her neck, kissing it with an open mouth as she writhed above me and pulled my hair harder. I lifted my hips into her. And I really wanted this to all be about her, and nothing fucking else. So I barely restrained the urge to do it again and again as I listened to her soft moans and whimpers. I licked her fucking neck all the way to her ear, sucking on that little spot right below it just the way I knew she fucking liked. It made her pull my hair harder, which made me fist my hand around hers tighter in the grass, as she writhed against me. She whimpered again, tugging her fist out from under mine on the ground. I kept sucking the skin on her neck, only vaguely wondering what she was doing, as she lifted her hips higher with a writhe and slid her little hand underneath her, and pressed her palm right into my dick. I gasped into her neck, halting my movements, and lifting my face up and looking at her wide-eyed. What the fuck? She kept her hand still, as she gazed at me and we panted at each other.
Please.
She pleaded breathlessly. And the look in her eyes made me want to groan and growl, and cry all at the same time. Because I knew that look so fucking well. She was showing me hers. She wanted me to show her mine. As if to emphasize her point, she fisted her hand tighter into my hair, fucking painfully, making my eyes roll back behind my eyelids against my will, and moved her palm against my erection. Fucking Christ. I dropped my face back into her neck and groaned into it. Fucking Christ. She shifted her hips against my still palm on her center, wanting me to start rubbing it again. I cautiously pressed it into her and did one rub. And just like I fucking knew would happen, She copied my movements, rubbing